Call the meeting to order with everyone present. First on the agenda, Ben Stevens and Steve Slessor, WinnMed Annual Financial Review. Come on, guys.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning. I'm just getting my voice back, so I'm going to leave most of the talking for Ben. But thanks for having us. We're here to review our audited financial statements here for our last completed fiscal year. Happy to report that we have 2 years in a row now of incredibly positive financial results. You'll see that as Ben walks through the information. That's obviously important anytime, but it's especially important when we're going into our large building project and have some funds that we'll be taking out in debt and needing to show that this organization can be financially viable through a large growth project such as that. So super happy with where we landed. I'll let Ben go through the documents, and then if you're interested, I can provide a few other hospital updates at the end. So
great. Well, we'll run through this pretty quick. I know that I believe that I Bailey had sent you guys all the audited financial statements and everything that we had to do. So feel free to review those at any time. But we'll go to page 1, which is the cash and cash investments. A couple highlights from that. Provided an additional cash for operations of about $2 million from last year to this year. So positive there. Purchase of capital assets, right around $4 million of capital assets this last year. About 1.25 of that was in the master facility plan, which is mostly the architectural fees and finalizing all those documents. $775,000 for the wound center and the HBO chamber, which we can gladly say that we've actually got 3 patients in there right now utilizing those therapy sessions that are about 2 hours long. So in the 5 years at our last location, we never had 3 patients in there at one time. We only had 2, and we can already say that within 3 or 4 months of us being live with that, we've already had a need for that with 3 patients in there, and those are usually about 40 weeks long. Those sessions are. So yeah, $230,000 of patient monitoring, along with another $230,000 for a new maintenance building, and then some $150,000 in ambulance related items. So a good balance of patient care type stuff, not all just facility type. So that's nice to see. We did choose to pay off a long-term note last year of about $1 million. You see that on the long-term debts. We did that for the Transforming Tomorrow project. It's better to have any of your previous notes all paid for rather than having to consolidate those into those other ones. I would have spent more money in the legal fees, bond fees to roll that $1 million note in there. So that was nice to be done. But about a $1.6 million cash decrease from the prior year to this year, mostly in just investments into the organization. So next page. On the statement of operations, you'll see that net patient service revenue went up by about 4.7%, which equates to about $3.5 million. So very, very strong year from the patient standpoint, from the revenue standpoint. But we had some offsets in that. So the operating expenses went up about 8.4%. Majority of that is all within the salaries. You can kind of see we made a pretty big investment into our employees this last year. About 6.8% is what we made from an increase in the salaries, about $2 million there. The employee benefits, you can kind of see that that's a $7.5 million of investment for that. But there's that IPERS piece that we always have at the very end of the year. So I really try not to focus on that. You guys had to deal with the same thing this last year. We had a $3 million adjustment, which made our bottom line even look stronger than what it was. So if we take a look at that box at the very bottom, we finished this year excluding IPERS at about $1.54 million in positive operating income. Consistent with last year, about 1.35. So that's some really good things to show that we've got some good revenue figures along with still able to grow our employee base and still come with a bottom line of a positive bottom line. So statement of operations continued. This is just the bottom half of our income statement. Provider relief funds, the $1.6 million of provider relief funds. That cash was received 2 or 3 years ago when the COVID piece was coming. We just realized that last portion of that as income this last year. Saw some increases in our investment income with some of the cash that we had then kind of been saving up for this building project. Increased to $782,000 of investments there. Again, going to the very bottom box, you can see that excluding the IFRS piece and this provider relief fund, about $4 million of positive total bottom line to the organization compared to $3 million last year. Going through some of just the graphs that were in the packet, days cash on hand, we're still at a solid 151 days cash on hand. The USDA requirement for days cash on hand for this building project and our loan commitment will be 90 days cash on hand. So we're sitting just fine with that. So that's one positive there. That's
Stay there. Or...
What's that? So our 5-year projection shows us at the lowest being right around 112 days. So and then it bounces right back up about 4 days cash on hand from there on out. So
we've already put in about $2.5 million of our own dollars into that project through architectural fees, but we'll have another $4.5 million that we will personally contribute from WinnMed into that. So that's what, you know, they'll start dropping it down, but then we'll recover after we've done it.
From the days, days in net accounts receivable, we're probably at one of the lowest that I've seen, especially for an organization our size, at 49 days cash for the patient accounts receivable stat. So that's just the amount of days it takes for us to from data service ending. So patient walks out the door after receiving service to the actual time when we get paid for it, is that ratio. So we're still working on that in some areas. I know ER is one area that we tend to have a higher, it takes us longer to get those out because it takes us longer to code all those, but we're getting that down quite a bit. So yeah, average age of plant, I think that you'll see that we're a little bit higher than others, or actually a little bit lower than others, but I would say that it's not the average age of our plant. It's that's pushing us towards this Transforming Tomorrow project. It's just the size. We're busting out of the seams right now. So, for example, our last allergy physician that just came on, we had to do 4 or 5 office moves to be able to get him 1 office along with 3 exam rooms. We're just out of space. And now we have an OBGYN physician that just started 2 weeks ago. Pretty similar story. We had to move around a lot of stuff. So we just have no rooms, no closets left over for that. So that's where a majority of this that will fuel this benefit of this Transforming Tomorrow project is this getting the more space for our primary care services and specialty care. So that will be a positive piece there. And then the final one is debt service coverage ratio, which is you guys probably review that quite often, but 8.62 is kind of where we are experiencing without the some of the PRF and the PPP items. But if you include those, we're at 10.1. So that's for every $1 in debt, we have the ability to pay our debt by $10.1. So that's very strong. USDA requires us to have 1.25 debt service coverage ratio. So at the lowest that we'll get to is right at 3. So very, very, very strong, and gives us the opportunity to partner with local banks on the interim financing piece by having that strong financial position. So the last one is kind of a metric that we continue we want to be steady at this. Salaries to total expenses, we're at 38%, 39%. You can kind of see that a lot of other places are at 41%. This is a hard one to measure. It's just one that we're looking at we want it to be pretty flat because the physician salaries are male employees, so those are not included in here. So that would be all of our frontline staff along with advanced practice providers. So that's kind of just that in a nutshell. I'll take any questions that you guys might have about finances or even anything going on at the hospital.
When's the new project start?
So we got bids back late last week. Our management committee is meeting today to walk through those bids and determine what we're going to recommend to the Board of Trustees. At the earliest, we'll have a special board meeting on Wednesday evening where we'll ask the board to take action. So that'll depend upon what the management committee discussion is today, if that meeting will happen or if we'll need more time for that meeting. Let's assume that meeting happens and that they approve all or part of the project to move forward. Then OB gets underway late February, early March,
Yep.
Right? And that'll kind of kick that off. And then the new expansion of the actual footprint of the campus will then start after thaw.
Surprises with the bids?
They're not exactly where we want them.
Yeah, we didn't have as much interest from, I would say, contractors within an hour. that we would have expected to. Mechanical part was the major one, so we would thought we would have got some mechanical contractors come out of the Waterloo area. Didn't get any. We got two of them, one out of Cedar Rapids and one out of Quad Cities, both union mechanical contractors. So you guys all know it. You're getting premiums in at that point. So that was the unfortunate one. We had a good local contractor on the electrical side, so that was positive to see. But mechanical was a double figure. So
what trends are on the horizon for small communities for their hospital services? What do you see the challenges in the future?
Yeah, so the financial headwinds are still absolutely there in healthcare. We are seeing a bit of a slow of the percentage of like salary expenses and supply expenses that have been going up over the last like 2 years. So the percentage is slow, but it's still building off of, those prior significant increases. So there absolutely are still financial headwinds. And to the point that we had the feasibility study done for the project, the 5-year financial feasibility study. And because there are so many differences, we went back and contracted with our auditors to redo it or update a lot of assumptions. When Ben referenced, we did significant salary increases across the board. That wasn't necessarily included in its full totality in the initial financial feasibility study. So we had all of that updated to make sure that even with the financial headwinds and pressures that we were still going to be okay. So small hospitals that have an ability to grow like us can still make it. Small hospitals that do not have an ability to grow their services are really going to struggle. The reimbursement per case is not going up very significantly, but expenses are. That math gets pretty obvious on what's going to happen there. And so our strategy for our financial success is through growth. And that growth is not just in Winneshiek County. Yes, we're a county-owned hospital, but if we're going to make it here in this county, we need to pull patients from Charles City, New Hampton, Osage, wherever it may be. And so we are going much further out in our marketing endeavors. So especially if you look at like an allergist, for instance, you have to drive 70 miles to find the next allergist that exists. So we absolutely think we can pull allergy from an hour away. Orthopedics, to find another place that has full-time orthopedic services. Again, you have to travel over an hour for that. So we are talking to communities in a more significant way than we've done in the past from a marketing and education standpoint. And that's how we'll achieve our financial goals, is through growth. But again, small hospitals that don't have the ability to do that are really going to struggle. There is some new payment methodologies that the government now has approved and finalized where small hospitals can drop their inpatient services entirely and get reimbursed better on all the outpatient stuff that they do. So the government saves money by not having a cost-based reimbursement on the inpatient service that's not well utilized, but the hospital does a little bit better off because they get paid a little bit more for every CT scan that they do or X-ray that they do. So there will be some small hospitals that will stop having inpatients, so those overnight patients, and just start being outpatient centers, and that's how some of them will survive.
So many of the other small hospitals are struggling. Within your service area, are there other hospitals that you kind of identify as being at risk of closure? And
so in the state of Iowa, there's a national study done about hospitals that are at risk for closure and then like severely at risk for closure, and based upon just a few different metrics and where they land. And those numbers are fairly staggering about the percent that are at risk and the percent that are at severe risk of closure, including in the state of Iowa. They don't break that down about hospital by hospital in that. But that will change a little bit. And so the state of Iowa has worked with the federal government to get approved a Medicaid direct payment program. This is a program that multiple states have already gotten approved, and you have to reapply every year. And essentially that program opens up additional dollars for the federal government for Medicaid services delivered. And the attempt is to get your Medicaid reimbursement similar to your commercial reimbursement. And so that has been approved, at least for this year, and will need to be reapproved. But that provides significant dollars to every hospital in the state of Iowa. And the more Medicaid you see, the more significant the benefit of the program is. And so hospitals that are significant risk for closure Oftentimes it's because they have either not a lot of patients, or their payer mix, as we call it, is not great. So not having a lot of commercial payers and having a lot of Medicaid payers. But this program will significantly impact in a positive fashion, especially those organizations that have bad payer mixes. And so I think that the risk of Iowa hospitals closing has significantly reduced because of that Medicaid direct payment program that was recently approved.
So some of us may be meeting in early December with our local legislators. What would be one or two questions you'd like asked?
So one of the things that often comes up is the certificate of need. That's pretty much a constant battle, if you will, or a constant negotiation between the hospitals in the state and the state legislatures. And what that program is right now, Iowa is a certificate of need state. And so with that, if you wanted to open up a significant new healthcare service, you have to go in front of a board and put together a proposal, and that board has to say yay or nay. You can or you can't open that service. You'll have arguments on both sides about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. The hospital argument is that should absolutely be in place. And it's specifically because if you don't have that check, then what could happen is you could have let's say a group of physicians says, we're going to open up an ambulatory surgery center in Decorah. And our goal is to do all of the profitable surgeries, okay? And then the hospital then is going to be left with all the stuff that doesn't make money. And therefore the hospital can't offset the things that it does that doesn't make money. And then the hospitals then struggle to keep those needed services open. So from the hospital side, because we don't want the cherry picking off of the stuff that's profitable, we at least want a board to review and say, yes, this service is unmet and needed, or no, it's not. And so every year this continues to be a discussion. The Iowa Hospital Association wants to come up with a compromise solution to it, because we know that there's some desire to eliminate or dramatically reduce CON. So there hopefully will be a negotiated compromise between the Iowa Hospital Association and the state Senate and the state House of Representatives to find something that both parties can agree on. So that's probably the number one issue right now that keeps coming forward is certificate of need.
Home healthcare is becoming pretty significant around here with the closures and so forth. Is the hospital expanding or looking at that area anymore?
Not necessarily significant expansion. We have expanded some of the services that we do in the hospice arena, for instance, some of the therapies. But we already serve a pretty wide geographic margin, or wide geographic area for home health and hospice. And home health and hospice is a perfect example of something that, and especially because of our critical access status, and I won't bore you with all the details, but that's something that doesn't add to the bottom line financially, but it's something that is incredibly important for the community that we want to do. So home health is an example, one of those services that is, we help support the community by other things that we are profitable on. But in terms of like significant expansion potentials, no, there'd be nothing on the horizon in that regard.
Is it hard to find OBGYN to come into Iowa?
No, for sure. Yeah. OBGYN is an incredibly difficult recruit, and especially if you're recruiting the first one into a group, that's incredibly difficult. So we found an individual that has had a long career in his own private practice, so he's used to kind of doing his own thing and not being around 5 other OBGYNs, and so that makes a position like this tenable. But we also had a gal that we interviewed straight out of residency that ultimately didn't take the job because she didn't want to be the first OBGYN into a location. So it's even more enhanced because, we were hiring our first one. But yeah, it's a difficult recruit for sure.
And that's statewide.
I don't think I can comment necessarily on what happens statewide. I can anecdotally say that when I talk to my colleagues that hire OBGYNs, that it's a difficult recruit. But I think that that's true for a lot of specialties. I'm not sure if it's especially true for OBGYN. If it is, it's maybe a little bit harder, but not night and day difference with some of the other specialties that we recruit to.
Your dermatologist that you recruited is coming online in another year.
2025.
3-year recruitment effort.
Yep, and our allergist is live and starting now, and
3, yeah.
so he's doing well. We're OBGYN's 2 weeks in, still searching for a second orthopedic surgeon. We have Hannah Ingvelson, new FP with OB that started, and then 3 new advanced practice providers that started recently. So yeah, lots of new faces.
Hannah's an old face.
What's that?
Hannah's an old.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
How many in-bed patient beds do we have?
So as a critical access hospital, you can be licensed for up to 25. And that 25 bed number includes both the beds in our medical surgical area as well as OB. So that's how many patients we can have bedded at any one given time before we max out between those services.
How often do we max out?
Hardly ever.
Be hard for us to even staff 25 beds with.
Yeah. I mean, there's been times that's been like, whoa, we're close. But yeah, Ben's right. It becomes a strain, not just due to the actual physical beds, but it becomes a strain from staffing it. And that's really true across, healthcare is struggling across the board with being able to transfer patients like we used to be accustomed to doing. It is not infrequent that the large hospitals are on diversion, but it's not necessarily because they don't have the physical bed there. It's that they don't have the staff to staff all of the licensed beds. So if they are licensed for 400, but they can staff 250, then the 250 staff, and then after that, they can't take any more patients. So we are keeping the higher percentage of patients here, and that's not just true for WinnMed, it's true for lots of organizations because the ability to transfer is just different than it used to be.
Well, thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks for your time and thanks for the support as always. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Enjoy the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda, Doug Groux, County Sanitarian budget.
As we go through budgets, I'll put a few extra copies over here for anyone. Wow.
Morning, Doug.
Whoa. Thank you.
As you know, I don't have a huge budget being one-man band, kind of like the soda machine money. The last couple of years, I froze my budget because it's pretty much status quo every year. This year I did add for postage and mailing and membership, those 2 line items. If you add them together, it's up $900 to get me through there. Otherwise, that's it on the expense side. On the revenue side, up a little bit this fiscal year. Last year, 29 new wells were drilled in the county, which is up a few. And 63 new septic systems went in the county, which is up approximately, I'd say about 10. And water testing was pretty busy. Total of that was 159 water tests were done last year in the county. So that's pretty much status quo there.
Traditionally, a lot of the water tests are paid through the state grant, and you usually run out of the state grant money. Is that what month do you usually kind of hit the max on those?
So the state grant has increased over the years.
Okay.
And right now, all 99 counties participate in the Grants to Counties program. If you divide it evenly, it's about $50,000. So a lot of counties don't use that kind of money. Other counties go through that their first quarter. So what the state does, HHS takes your smaller counties, and if they've got a big surplus, they'll shift it to whatever, Polk, a big county that needs the money. So I haven't run out in the last 2 years that they've had that. So that's a pretty big pot there. So that'd be pretty hard to do as a one.
Yeah.
So we budget exactly the same, didn't change that. Nothing came out of that this year anyway. Yeah, pretty much status quo on everything.
So, being funded by you,
Yes.
when was the last time they were increased?
Board of Health sets those fees. When I started, it was 25 for a septic permit, a well permit, and over the years, it's now $100 for a septic and well permit. A new well is $100 to the county and $25 to the state. So if you get a new well, I need a check for 100 to the county and 25 to the DNR. Then I go into the DNR's database and I issue that permit with the well number and the permit number. It's assigned to that permit for the county.
And they're set by the board of health.
Yes.
Thank you.
And even in spite of your increase, I think you, if I read correctly, each year you've been returning out of your budget.
Yeah, every year I've been here, I've returned. I've never had to amend anything. So.
That's always nice. Your biggest increase has really been in postage, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's in here because I mail all my water test kits and that gets pretty expensive. That's why I have a higher postage because all the water test kits get shipped.
On average, how much are you returning each year?
I don't know the numbers, but I've never come close to hitting the full mark on everything, so. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda, review approval job description for network and systems administrators.
So John got this prepared with some assistance from Lynn and so on. And so the timeline is that if you approve the job description, then it goes to Condrey and Associates, who scores it to set the salary scale based on our current salary matrix. And then John can work on starting the advertising process for when we would get someone. Our creative idea, and because of the restrictions we're going to have on the general fund, which would be where John and Fatima are currently paid, is to, if we hire this person, is to ask the Emergency Management Commission if they can run the salary and benefits for this person through their commission. It'll still cost you, since you fund the Emergency Management Commission, but you fund it out of the supplemental fund rather than the general fund, which is not restricted at this time. So it's going to obviously take a tax increase or come up with the money one way or the other, but it won't mean that you have to cut something else to be able to afford it. The general fund is right at a 1 to 1.5% increase is already going to be super tight. So I think it would be hard for you to justify adding big staff expenses in there without cutting something. So that's what we're working on. Sean has been working with John and I and he's ready to add it in when he presents his budget to the Emergency Management Commission. And we think it's completely justifiable because it maybe won't be this one person, but between the three of them, they spend a full-time person's worth of time that you're working for dispatch and law enforcement and emergency management anyway. So right now they aren't really putting their part of the load. So this would be a way, instead of saying, well, we're going to take 10% of John's salary and 30% of Fatima's salary and 60% of new person's salary, we'll just do one of them out of that budget and keep the other two the way they are.
That section of the network is actually the more complex piece anyway, because each of the cars, in a sense, is like its own little building, has a mobile router and various computers and printers in it.
Action?
Questions too.
In the past, when we hired Condrey, we had a lot of our issues with the fact, and John and I have talked about this, we had a lot of job descriptions written by department heads, and Condrey went through and kind of cleaned up a lot of that. There's a difference between the IT2 position that Condrey wrote and this. And there's a lot of there's a lot more, there's some qualification changes. And I don't know if IT2 is really the correct designation for this person or not, John,
Right.
but we want to, and since Connery is looking at this and so forth, do we really have an issue here that we need to make sure that we're maintaining from our HR perspective, the continuity so that it looks, so that we're maintaining, the same standards throughout. So that was a question that John and I talked about.
Right, and I did on the back or in those last sections like guidelines and complexity and context. I think that could fit better with what we already have for the department as a whole, like working conditions and things like that. I guess I was thinking this position would be kind of a level 3, like I need somebody that's really, really good with networking, that's really good with servers and Active Directory. And right now I'm kind of trying to get that from vendors and it's fairly difficult. So
And you did utilize Henry's
kind of
template format. So we'll ask when we submit this if you guys approve it, we'll submit it to Condrey and ask them to make sure it reads correctly within the scope of what we did before, as well as score it.
I guess I feel more comfortable approving it after Condrey were to help rewrite it to their standards. So it fits in our matrix system. It's more clear. Because there's some things that I marked on here that seem like the bullet points could be combined into one bullet point.
Okay.
It's verbose. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here that could be combined and
I
simplified.
mean, would it make sense for us, we three, to work together to kind of
I'd be
look at
happy
this
to.
a little
I'd
more
be happy to
closely?
do that, John.
We could do that.
Yeah, I would, and then my other question would be, Connery in the original, and I think I understand where you're coming from, put an education requirement in there. But then I know that limits a lot of people with the skills that do not have the paperwork. But do you think that's a necessary piece in this, or are we better off to leave that out based on other qualifications?
Yeah, I would lean towards leaving it out because you're right. We don't know. We might be limiting based on education where this is all experience based.
Or couldn't you do like we do with others, where you could say, no,
Or equivalent experience?
yes, yes, you have.
So why don't you two work with John and maybe we'll bring this up
I'm more
again.
comfortable with that.
So we work on it this week and then
Yeah.
next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very good fun. Throw 2 cents in. But John and I really appreciate John because we had some good conversation about this.
Thank you, Jared.
All right, thank you.
Oh, we're a few minutes behind. Next on the agenda, Jayne Schultz, County Recorder's budget.
Mine is involved. Okay.
I got my double check that I entered it correct. Yeah.
So I kept everything status quo as well. Okay.
And you may have to speak it up so they can hear you.
I said I kept everything the same. I no changes at all. I felt like I was I've always stayed within my budget, so.
Sounds good.
So yeah, let's get you back on schedule pretty quick here.
I'm not asking for anything. One thing I did look different last year, the cyber team from Isaac had recommended new computers every 5 years, which I hadn't been doing. So we all got a new computer last year. So we should be set for a while, but that is an expense I haven't,
You weren't the only one
who
who got in trouble for that.
How old was yours?
Yeah, mine was like
As old
20,
as your password, maybe.
yeah, 2015 or something like that. Yeah, I was way out of date.
It's kind of a hassle to get everything down there.
So Jayne, are you all through all of the process of digitizing all the records and all of that?
We have sent everything to ArcaSearch. up to 1950.
So ArcaSearch scanned the really old ones,
Mhm.
but she from whatever, early 1900s to 1950, she had already scanned them. They just weren't available on the site. So they're working on indexing them, and getting them put on the site with the other ones.
And so you're familiar with the Iowa Land Records site. So my goal is to have current back to 1950 on Iowa Land Records, and then from 1850 to 1950. Everything will be totally electronic backup, besides what we have on our own server, which
Yeah, that's helpful. That's helpful. Is there anything else that you can kind of relate that people see the recordings so that they don't really understand what the recorder's office does? What would you say you accomplished in the office? that the
well,
public could
you
see?
know, when people bring in to record real estate documents, the idea of recording something is to give the public notice that this property has been transferred or whatever, that there's an easement here or whatever is being stated on that recording document. And so that's what we do. And everything we have should be available publicly. I mean, in the past, we've had a lot of foot traffic. I know when I started in the office, there was people every day researching in our vaults, if any of you have ever been there. Today, that's totally changed. So much stuff is available online through Iowa Land Records and now through ArcaSearch. And we've had a lot of people come in doing, really historic search on their families. And they're astonished to find out about ArcaSearch. So,
We've seen it in our office too. A lot of times the people have to start in our office to find the dates of the transfer, so they know where to start looking for the deed in her office. So
exactly.
we have just the list of who transferred property from when, from whom to whom. And so that's helps it narrow it down then when they go to actually look for the document.
So if they know the legal description, they start at Ben's office, and then it gives them a date. Some of the more recent records get a looking page, but a lot of the older ones just get a date. So then we have the indexes, and our search is grant or grantee legal. So if somebody has, you have to know something. Sometimes people come in and say, my grandpa lives, about this property. We said, well, we need a little bit more than, his name was Ole Johnson and he came from Norway.
So if you want to do an online search, they go to the recorder's page in our website.
Yes.
And click
exactly. The historical documents, I've got it on my favorites, so I think it just says historical archive.
And then they can
Yeah.
just search within
Yeah,
that by name
yeah.
or property.
There's a lot of search options within the ArcaSearch. That's what I like about it.
Have you seen an uptick in traffic on that?
I don't know how we can track that yet.
I think they provide user metrics, but we haven't had a
It'd be
report.
interesting to see that.
Yeah.
But there's gotta be an uptick on it because we don't see nearly as many people
Exactly.
in the office doing
Yeah,
it as we used to.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's helped.
And some people know about it, like John Iverson from Erdman's. I didn't realize he was using it, but those surveyors, that's one of the groups of people that still come in our office, but now.
We've got a idea in the ArcaSearch people's ear to get there's some older, basically road records, but older easement and road records that are actually in the clerk of court's office that get used quite frequently by the road department. That's where we found some of these old road records that we vacated or had talked about vacation lately. And so the next time they're in the area, they're going to stop and see if we can get those scanned. So that
There's so much, and we continue.
Mike Schimmick basically is the one who uses them the most. So
Under that same ARPA money.
we're hoping that there's some ARPA money left to use for that too. Yeah.
It took, when we first got Beacon Schneider available, it took us a long time. It took a long time, and that's like current information, but it took a long time for the public to be aware how much information is on the Beacon Snyder, and we tried to, I know we used to get calls from the FSA just to get people's deeds, to get them started, you know, for funding from the FSA. And it took about 3 years for them to realize they could, you know, all that information was on Beacon, so now we don't get those calls anymore either. So it'll take a while, you know, and that was, and like I said, that's current information, so that's kind of more in demand, you know, obviously.
Are you planning another passport Saturday?
We did one in September. We do usually spring and fall. Yeah. So we did our September one and probably next spring then, yeah. But I mean, we continually do it every day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Sometimes people think that's the only time because of that. Yeah.
People know that they can get a photograph there at the recorder's office.
Oh, they do. Yes, they do. Yeah, we get a lot of, yeah.
I mean, I think courthouse accessibility is an issue and that a lot of people can't get there.
Yeah, yeah.
So whether it's an evening or Saturdays or whatever, I think it should become more the norm of what we're offering to the public.
Yeah, well, yeah, we've always, the day Dan was there, that was our record, but we always have 20 people at least. And yeah, and we got it done, but pretty good. I mean, we get people in and that's a lot of people to process in 3 hours.
Is it worth expanding to 4 days a year or Saturdays?
I don't know, we could try. You know, I guess we've done the fall and the spring.
The wait time is so long not to get that back.
Yeah, they cut it back a couple weeks.
I just think it would,
Yeah,
a lot of people don't realize they're traveling until,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if they live in south part of the county, they can't get over.
Yeah, I, that's what we need to do it. And, you know, after, because there's such a huge turnout, after COVID, we were trying to figure out, we were open late on every Monday, but that did not have a big, yeah. And I don't know, it was just because the publicity wasn't there. When we do a Saturday, we really could.
I think it'd be worth trying doubling it down on that, so it's 4 times a year.
Yeah, we could try.
That's one thing you can't do online, you can't pay.
That's for sure.
You gotta do it in
Yeah,
person.
Yeah, yeah, they did offer renewals online for a short time, but first time passports always have to come through and everything. So, yeah, I think we can. We were probably one of the few offices that do it even twice a year, I'll tell you that. Oh, there's some that don't do it at all, but because we've always had a big turnout, we do that.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay.
Thank you, Jayne.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Tony Phillips. Planning, zoning and floodplain administrative. Budget and.
Well, the
floodplain.
sound system is being critiqued. I heard most of nothing that Jayne said. So whatever's going on is not working.
No.
We're waiting for the speaker, those 4 speakers have not been connected yet. And that's what we're waiting on, and we have not had within the last week update that I know of. Have you?
No.
And then the bill has not been paid.
Yeah, we're holding the bill. We're holding the other half of the payment until we get.
And I will bet you will hear this guy.
I'm gonna say you probably won't have problem hearing me. You may not understand it, but you'll hear it.
I can hear Ben very well. The rest is mumbling, just mumbling.
Thank you.
All right, good morning. So on the expense part of the budget, did not change a thing. On the revenue side, I raised it by like $500, 4%. And that there, my logic on that was from floodplain permits. Yeah, I don't know if that's actually gonna be accurate or not, but it won't be a big deal. A couple assumptions on the budget. The floodplain ordinance, to publish that, Ben normally has some money. I don't know where that comes from, but Ben, whenever we had big ordinance changes, Ben has found money to publish those. I'm assuming that he still has it hidden somewhere.
We'll find it, yes.
And so the other one with the floodplain ordinance and the zoning change. So the floodplain one will actually should be this fiscal year. But the zoning ordinance change for accessory dwelling units and any changes on that, there would be next fiscal year. And I'm assuming that Ben would have that money as a supervisor slush fund also. That's all I have on budget. Anybody got questions on that? Sir?
Tony, how was the permitting this year versus last year? Are we seeing an increase, decrease?
So, I just had to look this up for the Decorah housing. They're having some meetings, right? So I looked it up and we are actually right on line. I thought it was going to be different, but we were right on line. It is amazingly consistent for the 14 years I've been here. We've had like one low year, which wasn't 20, and we've had a year or two that was higher. But for the most part, housing wise, we are right around 30 permits a year. And we're right on track this year also.
We're not growing.
Say again?
And we're not growing.
No.
Any other questions on that? So the other thing I had was the NFIP update, NFIP, National Flood Insurance Program. So I did a news release on this here, just to let citizens know something's coming and where to find info on it. When I sent that news release out, I forwarded it to all you guys too. You all received it. I've been contacted by the Decorah newspaper and they did a little article. I talked to 2 people who've read that article, so I know it's been there. Frequently asked questions section was posted to the county website. The frequently asked questions were right from the DNR, the Iowa DNR, and the FEMA. So the ordinance, I got a template ordinance from the Iowa DNR that meets the FEMA requirements. You don't have a lot of choices on this ordinance, right? I took the ordinance, I put in all the Winneshiek counties, I formatted it to match our zoning ordinance so we can put it in there. And I sent it back to the DNR for approval. I have not received any word from approval from the DNR on that yet. And I did give you each a copy of the ordinance, put it in your box. And I'm going to give that to the P&Z on our next meeting. So not to take action on it yet, but so they have it to read it. I had the GIS guys pull up some statistics for me. These statistics are things that are going to be needed for the application to join the NFIP. There are 3,872 tax parcels consisting of a total of 119,750 acres that contain at least some land in the special flood hazard area. The special flood hazard area is the 100-year floodplain that we care about. 26,222 acres are covered by the special flood hazard area. So of that blue area on GIS, that is 26,000 acres. Winneshiek County has a total of 425,400 acres. If 26,222 of those acres are within the special flood hazard area, that means 6% of Winneshiek County land is in the special flood hazard area. And according to GIS, we have 42 residential structures within the special flood hazard area. So that's really all I have. Any questions?
Structure, that just means, yeah, structures could just either be a house, a shed, or.
No, that 42 residential structures is.
Residential.
There is some tax connection to residents on those structures. That's how they pulled them out.
Oh.
He did have a number for me for other structures, but he said there was no way to pull it up accurately. And it was a very small number. It came out to be like 160 other structures. That's just a memory guess.
Okay.
Your goal is to get this in and done by end of year.
No, the goal is to try to get as close to the end of February as possible to have that floodplain ordinance done.
All right. Thank you, Tony.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, one thing.
Yes, sir.
Moving forward, if this goes through, would people not be able to build on the floodplain? Is that the goal of this program?
So according to FEMA,
And get insurance, I guess.
but yeah, it is not the goal that you do not build in the floodplain. The goal is to make it difficult to build in the floodplain, so it's going to be flood proof. Okay. Things will be broken down. It's actually a more complicated question than you think.
Yeah.
Things will be broken down into two different tiers. Stuff that is existing and stuff that is new. Anything new will be built flood proofed, which is in this ordinance, how to make it flood proof. Anything existing, any additions to it, substantial additions, which is defined, has to be flood proof. Or when you hit a certain level of repairs or improvements, then the whole thing has to be flood proof.
So the impact on the identified housing that's in the floodplain
40 some structures.
is gonna be,
They won't be able to make significant changes to their property without incurring the additional expense of floodproofing.
Probably the immediate effect of this is going to be on mortgages, because this is something that doesn't include the county per se, but the lending industry. When this map is official, then by federal law, all mortgages that have land structures in that floodplain have to carry flood insurance. They cannot get the subsidized flood insurance until and unless the county adopts the NFIP or joins the NFIP, I should say.
And FEMA dollars can't be distributed unless we adopt them.
FEMA dollars for damages within the special flood hazard area. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Andy Vandermotten, County Attorney.
He's gonna be online.
Good morning.
I stuck the IRP Freeport Property thing under his time just because I didn't know if there would be any more updates or any more information or not.
I've got.
You have anything for us, Andy?
I don't believe so. I did send out updated leases, addendum for community actions lease, and a new lease for Historical Society. I think those were finalized with Steve last evening, at least the most recent one.
And I received them and I haven't read through them, but I'll forward them to the board then, and we'll probably have them on next week's agenda.
I went through, Andy was gracious, we went through, that's becomes a little complicated with all of the different moving parts about it. And so I went through the entire thing with Andy so that we had all the details correct in the leases. The changes are minor. We're eliminating less than 100 square feet off of the Smith Building lease. The only thing that we're doing is just clarifying that we're using 3 cells out of the existing jail part for the record storage of the clerk of the court. And everything's pretty straightforward.
We're talking historical preservation.
We're talking about two separate things.
Two different things.
So,
Historic Preservation Commission is moving and relocating
Right.
to the Smith Building in office number 14 or 15, which is about 100 square feet, and vacating the space that IT is going to be using. The clerk of the court is moving their documents from the women's jail cell into 3 of the men's jail cells inside of the male portion of the complex on the 2nd floor. And so that's taking away space that was under that dollar lease of the Historic Society. So that takes care of that. Then the other space being utilized by our own, the rest is being utilized by our own department.
so the Historic Preservation Commission is part of county government. So
When he said the updated lease, we're talking about.
we're talking about 2 leases, 2 separate projects.
Yeah.
The Preservation Commission, this is why it's getting gets a little muddled, but the Preservation Commission, which is part of county government,
Right.
needs an office space, and they currently have one on the first floor of the jail, but we're moving them down to the Smith Building, where Community Action currently pays, but they aren't using one of the offices. So we're taking that out of their lease. So they aren't paying for that. And so that the Preservation Commission can move down there. That's the first floor of the jail, one project. The second project is the Historical Society rents the upstairs of the jail for storage, and we're removing some of their space to transfer some records around. And so they only pay $1 a year, so it isn't a money change so much as a description of what space they're using.
And the financial impact is $74 a month reduction in NEICAC's lease to move them down there. And the process of what it does is it saves us from the need of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to build an addition to the law enforcement center to accommodate needs there, which are being accommodated by our existing structure. So for the public's purpose, this move, which involves 5 different departments, and this shell game of moving everything around, and everyone's cooperation has been fabulous. The net impact is it saves us the problem of having to spend a significant amount of money
For a new building.
It's a secure building.
Yeah, and we're using our facility as well.
So there's really 3 leases.
Two
Because the Historical Preservation does not have a lease, because they're part of our government.
That's the county
They're-
commission.
Yep, they're operating under your direction.
No, it's okay.
Just like the sheriff is gonna use this extra space that we've opened up, but there's no lease because that's part of the county government.
And I should have prefaced my question with, for the community's information.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's why I was trying to clarify.
To make clear, we're
Yeah.
designating Historical Preservation Commission and Historical Society,
Our two
two
separate,
separate entities.
Yeah, historical, for everyone's clarification, like Shirley was saying, the Historical Commission is a county commission, no different than the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Right.
Or the Board of Adjustment. All of those are county government. The Historical Society is a separate 501c3 nonprofit with their own board of governors and directors and so forth. And they're the ones that have been utilizing part of the county space on a long-term 20+ year lease, that we're removing some of the space we made available to them to accommodate another division of the county government, our clerk of the court and their record storage. So it gets very complicated, and it's hard to follow all the moving pieces without a map.
Well, and until I was a supervisor, I didn't know Historical Society and Historical
Right.
Commission, Preservation Commission were two separate entities. And there's a long history there too. But so the public knows, two separate things.
So the net result is good cooperation, good overall results in a
Right.
reasonable amount of time, and everybody is, I think, pretty much smiling.
Wonderful.
only thing left is to get people with strong backs to move all the Preservation Commission's record or storage down to the Smith Building.
Well, and there's one minor detail, and that's the road department needs to vacate or draw on a space out here for access for the sheriff's office to be able to access their needs.
An idea, I don't know if you can do it or not, but the respite team at Luther hires out to do heavy lifting projects.
We did that with some big furniture in the past.
And
Great.
in the case of the Historic Commission has a bunch of volunteers to,
With good
for their
backs.
little bit of movement. It's mostly boxes, so it's really not bad. And the sheriff's department, because of the custody issues of the juvenile court records that are part of the court
They
source,
have to handle them.
they have to have, there's a chain of custody issue that must be
Sure.
maintained. So the sheriff's office deputies, under the supervision of our sheriff, will facilitate that move from place to place. And that keeps all of the legal ramifications, completely in place. So it's a good thing.
It's just the issue of stacks of old newspapers that high.
For that last little bit, that is the Historic Society, and they'll just relocate it within that space.
Well, it's still.
Or
it's still a lot of.
you have the opportunity, Mark. She presented it to you for those newspapers. You can certainly help that issue, Mark.
For a reasonable donation, she would facilitate.
I need to talk to her about that.
Does anyone else have anything else for Andy? Nope, apparently not. You're good to go, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
10:30, next on the agenda, public hearing, Wren Valley Road vacation.
Move to open the public hearings.
Second. We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All those in favor?
Seconded.
I did.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Public hearing is now open. Is there any public comment on the Wren Valley Road vacation? Anyone online with any comment on the Wren Valley Road vacation?
I move to close the public hearing. I'll second that.
A motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public hearing is now closed.
Here's the resolution. Just a reminder, you sold the bridge that was on this road to the landowner 6 months ago or so. And so now you're vacating the road, getting close to the bridge, but back a little ways so where it meets another landowner. And then everything that's approaching the bridge on both sides is going to be his now.
And the way they've done this vacation, it still allows for us for a safe turnaround for our trucks.
Anyone like to take action?
I'd move to approve the resolution to vacate Wren Valley Road.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second for the Wren Valley Road vacation. Is there any further discussion?
Dan, this is Andy, could I just double check? Ben, does this resolution is the last version that has the copy of that contract attached? The contract for the bridge?
I don't know if it has a contract attached, but it was the last version you sent me.
And that last paragraph should refer to sale of the bridge, I believe.
Yeah, the entire road right away, beginning with point. Transfer. The last paragraph, the resolution shall be delivered. Transfer.
Look up maybe one.
Flat. Let's see. Let me see if it has, I think this is the last one you sent me, but let me double check.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it passed the right one.
Thank you.
It says Part B, paragraph 2 says this transfer is further subject to the terms and agreement to purchase and release and then, let's see, indemnification agreement concerning a bridge located on the vacated right-of-way. Said agreement was entered into between the Winneshiek County Board of Supervisors and the Baumlers on July 10th of 2023. The terms of said agreement will remain in full force and effect.
That is the correct one.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't need to file a copy of that agreement with this resolution, but it just needs to reference that agreement.
Correct.
Okay.
And you've got a motion and a second on the floor.
Where then? It is a resolution. Shirley?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Steve? Aye. I also. Passes unanimously. Oh, this 10:35, next on the agenda, Mary Fitch, 360th Street vacation comments. Come on up.
Hi.
Morning.
Morning. So I'm here to talk to you about 360th Street, the level C section of that that's in Highlandville Township. And to begin with, I'm not sure if we should mention that last week there was a parcel of land up there that was represented to be under my ownership, and that's not correct, and that would change easement discussions from last week. I don't know, do you want to?
Yeah, so I met with Mary on, was it Thursday afternoon? And yeah, at that point is when I first found out that there was a discrepancy on the Beacon website, and Mike, I believe, has that squared away now, so that does change the conversation. Yeah.
So I just wanted to clear that up because what I say here might be kind of in conflict of what was stated last week. So last July of 2023, I was going out to my farm to settle up with my neighbor to the north about some farming that we had agreed to do together, and I came across this riprap. So I called my neighbor, Peel, and asked him about it, and he told me that he had contacted the county, and the county gave him permission to do it. So I came into the county's office, county engineer's office, and visited with Jeff Kuboushek, and Jeff was kind enough to look into that issue. And a few days later, he contacted me and he said he can't find anybody that talked to Peel, and there is no permit on file. So at that point, there must have been conversations between Peel and the county. And then in August, Peel came into the board here, and he said that he had made improvements to that level C road, and he would like to vacation it. Opinions differ on improvements because I don't call them improvements at all. It's an obstruction, it's an inconvenience, and it's a huge concern. If you vacation what Peel is requesting, Peel still has access of that level C road that runs from Locust Road all the way over to where it junctions with level B road. He still has access to all of that across his private land then, which would, as he's talking about vacationing, and all the way over to Locust. He only owns land on the east side. I have land that runs from the Locust Road all the way over to that level B road. Now I won't have total access. Now my access is disrupted by what you would vacation, and I can't cross that private land. So that to me is a huge issue. Access in farming is a huge issue. So then there was conversations had about vacationing. And I received by email just about a week ago a suggested proposal from Peel's attorney that would vacation all of my right-of-way. I now have on my lot 1, I have 165 feet of my land that touches county right-of-way, not the road, but the right-of-way. And that would all be gone, all of my access to that right-of-way. And in addition, in this proposal, he said I would have to also give him some of my land that runs through that right-of-way. So then the counties also had some conversations with me about vacationing. And one of them was, of my 165 feet, they would leave 33 feet open for that my land would then butt up against this 33 feet of right-of-way. It was also mentioned at that time that there's a little section of land right-of-way on the north side of my lot 1, which is an odd shape, kind of a triangle shape. But if you looked at it right now, it looks like a farm field. It's not being used. So to use that little triangle section, you're going to have to rip out a property line fence. You're going to have to put in more culvert. You're going to have to haul in a lot of gravel, and then you're going to have to grade that. And who's going to pay for that? And you're involving another landowner. That right away is on Jeff Kotek's land to the north. So if I ever have to go search for another tenant, the first thing they're going to ask me about is access to that farmland. If I want to sell this farm, access is a huge issue. And I'll be the first to say that part that Jeff Peel is wanting to be vacationed, I seldom use, but that's not a never. And I can tell you specifically the last time I used it was under the previous landowner, Marceau. Because once crops goes in, your access is changed greatly. I mean, when the crops are out, you can go a lot of places for access. Once those crops are in, that changes. And a few years back, crops were in, and I needed to get equipment to that east end of my land. And that's when I used that access off that level B road. If you vacation it now, I'm going to have to unload over on Locust Road and track all the way across to do that job today. It just seems to me Like I'm being penalized for riprap that was put in there without a permit and without any consideration for the landlords that have a legal right to use that road. So I'm asking you not to vacate that road. I'm asking you to deal with the issue that brought me to this table, and that's the riprap. There was no talk of vacationing this road until that riprap in it. The county had never contacted me. Peel had never contacted me. There was no conversations being had about vacationing until that riprap went in. And I'd like it gone, and I'd like my access to remain the same on that level C road. So, do you have any questions? Okay.
It's really a bit confusing to a certain extent because of who built where and what and access for everybody that is on that. And then if gates go back in, how does that affect driveways or access to and all? So I don't.
Peel bought a house on a level C road that he knew was a level C road.
Well, yeah.
And, you know, from my point of view, if you're ever out on what I call my land, but it's the county right of way, that locust road gate is always closed. And if you drive across my land, the county right of way, it's almost 100% always clear. There's never any obstructions. And the reason is not really because it's right of way. The reason is because of farmland access. My tenant doesn't want to go out there and have to clear a tree when he's in his combine. So we keep that section, that right of way is clean and free of issues. You know, just for my convenience, for my farming operation. It also fulfills the right of way requirements, but that's why we do it.
I think the board's discussion last week basically was no longer considering from Locust Road east to Fields property. So all of your access would remain. It was that north little bit that was still in question.
Yeah.
That's the part they need to talk about.
Which I seldom use that, but that's not a never.
It's a good point.
So, just if somebody sold Mr. Peel land, he could put in his own driveway, but he doesn't have any land that gets up to the Bear Creek side road.
Right. Between his property and the Bear Creek or whatever that other road is. Bear Creek?
Yeah, so whatever street.
That's actually still 360th,
Okay,
right?
between his property and 360th, he doesn't own the property in between. It's only right of way.
No, I think that's where the confusion came from last
Yeah,
week.
there is a sliver that goes from his property that's further south. There's a sliver now that runs up to the intersection.
Of his land.
Correct, from his land up to the
So
intersection.
he could
It's all-
put his own driveway in. On that.
Well, it's all within county right of way. So, but he does technically own the underlying title underneath the county right of way.
That was what was different since last week.
Was there ever, Mary, was there ever a time when he had that right of way littered? I think I recall some photographs that Jeff took that showed a bunch of things down below his shop building down there that was littered across the right of way. Has there been access issues even because of things that he was placing on the right of way besides the riprap?
So since Marshall sold that, Peel's only been there 2 or 3 years. And my last incident where I needed to use that access was when Marshall was still there. So I've not been up through there since Marshall sold it to Peel. You know, again, if the crops are in and I need to do something on that side, I would be wanting to use that access. I'm not trying to inconvenience anybody by using that road when I don't need it. And I do want to use that road when I need it.
The riprap is in the way for equipment.
The riprap is inconvenient up on the top part and down through there. When Marshall owned it, when I was first out there, that gate was up where it's supposed to be. And then Marcel moved it back down, so he didn't have to open and shut it every time he went into his house. But that gate was still up and in place, blocking public access, but farther down that road.
Was it down by the shed?
Kind of down by the shed. You could actually see it up off the level C or B road. Just, you know, barely, but you could see where Marcel had put it. And now it's gone entirely.
So
Well, I think
if
it's
the
gone.
board, just so I understand, because I don't know that area, if the board only vacated property that was currently Peel's, would that impact you? As long as they didn't vacate anything that was on your property?
Yes.
That's an important part of it, because that was his request a compromise was to only do his portion. But that, if that affects you, then that's important to know.
Mhm.
So if we vacated, everything would revert to the landowners.
Mhm.
And there would be no road for the county to deal with.
Mhm.
But if we vacate it, then Mary doesn't have access when she needs to for her runoff closer to 360.
Right.
Whose land would you have to go through to get to your land?
I'd have to go all the way over to Locust Road.
I mean, if somebody yielded their access, could you buy access from somebody or?
Actually, I've already, well, and this is years ago, spoke with Jeff Kotek, my neighbor to the north, and he doesn't want to sell any land. And that would be the only person that I could, you know, it's the only one that owns land that would butt up to mine.
So the only part that wouldn't affect you is if they went south far enough past your property and then vacated just in Peel's section there. So you would have two dead ends along your property, and then his would be private property.
Then I still can't drive across it to access 360.
And does it go all the way through there?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
Look, it's just 360. Okay.
Yeah.
The cleanest thing might be to just get the riprap back
Mhm.
and leave the road.
Mhm.
And get the gate back up.
Where the gates go then?
Put gate back up, leave it alone. Get the riprap up.
If Peel would instead put the gate up down by his machine shed, would that be acceptable?
That doesn't impact me at all. I mean, it's still a locked gate and the locks are supposed to be common. We should all have a key.
Or if they made that north little bit class B, which is the same maintenance level, but no gate required, then he could leave, wouldn't have to leave it open when it's supposed to be closed.
He has to leave the C closed and locked.
Yeah, that's the south or the south and east.
But
West.
if it's B, then we
The
don't
gates
follow.
You don't have to, if it's B.
You don't have.
So if you convert that to a level B road, that's still open to people. So I would still be able to have access.
Yes.
And then if it's gated at the level C boundary, that would still restrain people or the public from gaining access to level C.
You can get into his
Do you
machine.
think that's workable?
Yeah.
You think that's workable?
That would be workable for me, for sure. It doesn't change my access at all.
But you'd want the riprap up.
Oh, for sure.
She has to have.
That's too under level B,
Yeah.
the maintenance requirement.
Yeah,
I think it's not appropriate to leave it level C. If he's just gonna leave the gate open all the time, then it's why have it be turned level C.
So I spoke with Andy, maybe I have 360th on my part of the agenda, so maybe I'll just merge into that, but yeah, we can't have it, the Iowa code does require a level C road to have a gate. And so what I'm gonna recommend to you is that we don't discuss any vacations at this point. Maybe in the future, that's another conversation, but at this point, we send, and I've got a letter drafted, and had Andy review it already to require Peel to get all the obstructions out of the right of way within 30 days. He also has to put the fence or the gate back up on the far north end because that is where the level C begins. I will inform him that you can request the level B scenario like Ben was talking about, where you move the level C down to his driveway at the Y kind of. But in order to do that, you'll have to petition to the board in order to change from a C to a B. So that's kind of where I'm gonna recommend is that we send him a letter requiring him to remove the riprap and other obstructions from the right of way and then replace the gate back up at the far north end.
I would add to that though, that he also needs to remove the obstructions on the level C road down by the shed.
Correct.
Is that included in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the last time I went through it, I know there was stuff blocking it where you could not, but, excuse me, when the time that I went through it, you could get all the way through. There would happen to be a tree down, but we cut that up pretty quickly and got through, but that has nothing to do with Mr. Peel. But the previous time that Kuboushek had been down, and I think there was equipment in the way which you could not get through, but that had been moved by the time that I had gone down it. So.
Thank you.
Mary, thank you for filling in.
Yes.
Thank you for explaining it a little better. I'm a little behind. Next on the agenda, Rissman, sound engineer.
So yeah, like I said, 360th on, if that's the way you want me to proceed, then I've got a letter written, just got to throw it on Winneshiek County letterhead, and Andy's already reviewed it and get that off to Mr. Peel to remove the riprap and all obstructions and get the gate back up on the north end.
Sounds like the logical way to go.
I think it's the only way.
Should he petition, has to work on the petition, I mean, for him to put the gates in up there, then a week later have to move them down, I mean, that's.
That's up.
I think we could work with him on that. Now, we're giving him 30 days to get the stuff removed, so he would have the ability to get the riprap moved out of there, and then he would have 30 days to put a petition together and come in and talk to you guys, and I would think 30 days is enough time, but
When we say remove riprap, do we remove it where Mary needs to get in with her equipment and back away from the roadway?
all of it,
All of it,
you know,
okay?
there's no reason for that riprap to be in the right of way, so.
Do we have a place we can offer him to donate the riprap? It's not gonna be using that we need.
That I don't know that, I guess, but the other thing with this notice is that per Iowa code, if they don't remove it, we can go in there and remove it, then he would get billed for our time and cost. So that would be part of the letter as well. And I will make sure you guys have a copy of that letter once we have it fine tuned.
The road itself, the blacktop will stay.
So in talking with Andy, we're okay with that from the perspective of the liability that I mentioned last week with not plowing on a pavement. The level B and level C ordinance detail that we don't have any maintenance on that. So I wouldn't necessarily think we have to require him to remove that. But you would have that option if you wanted to require that to be removed as well. Again, Mr. Peel was not the one that put that in. Doesn't mean he wouldn't be responsible for getting it out of there if that's what you wish.
I guess if we don't have to plow it, I think.
This is where we should take it out.
Yeah, take it out with very confident, so.
Riprap seems to be the major.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
He will need to be made aware though on that asphalt that if it ever does get damaged, then we're not going to be out there fixing it. And if it gets to the point where it's dangerous, we'll have to tear it up and turn it into a rock road.
You'll have to turn it up.
Well, I suppose we'll have to figure that. I imagine we should give the cost to him since it's his responsibility.
Should that be added to that?
Yeah, I can talk to Andy on that. Maybe that can be a supplemental letter later. Depending on if he petitions it or not, so.
Right. I appreciate the amount of communication that it took to arrive at this decision. And that includes you, Mary, there you are. It's important.
Yeah, and I think, given the situation that we're in, it could have been done a lot quicker, but with me only serving a couple hours a week, trying to help out and I think that prolonged it longer than it maybe could have, but hopefully we get it taken care of here shortly, so. The other thing I had on the agenda is the radar speed signs. We have these and there's 11 of them throughout the county. in 6 locations. We have 2 in Hesper, 1 in Festina, 2 on Whitetail Road, 3 in Freeport, 1 in Spillville, and 2 in Frankville. We have 1 in Frankville and then 1 in Freeport that have gone bad. These things were paid for by the county, and they're with shipping a little over $3,000 per sign. With 2 of them going bad at this point, the other ones are going to at some point in the future, whether it's a year or 2 from now, they're going to go bad. So we're talking over a $30,000 situation here. Is this something that you guys want to continue, or should we just, as they go bad, not replace them? Batteries, I believe, lasted about a couple of years, and now we're seeing that the actual signs themselves are about 5. Now, I will say they slow people down. I certainly slow down every time I go by one of them.
We had,
Just whether or not you want it.
we had issues with the batteries when they were first put in, like some of the batteries went bad within the first year.
Yeah.
And so they replaced all the batteries like about a year out. Now the signs are going bad.
And we even purchased an extra battery to have on our shelf, and that went bad. So
Just sit on the shelf.
So, yeah.
Are there grants available for these? Any traffic safety grants of any kind?
Somehow that, in Commerce City Council meeting, they have somehow received a grant for about 4 of these signs in Calmer. And I'm not sure the details or how, but they're going to be putting up 4 of the 4 major lead-ins to Calmer on 52, and they have 1, and the one Spillville, you can just probably, if they want to keep it, we could probably give it to Spillville and let them have the responsibility of it, because they'll be eventually applying for a section of expansion of their city limits through that piece where the sign exists, because it's needing to correct some boundary lines and some people they provide water to that they want to have incorporated with the city. So
On this list, Spillville is the only one that's an incorporated town.
Yeah.
So I think that one you would,
I'm sorry,
Can you look into the ones in Calgary?
Well, I'm thinking that's a state thing.
it might be a state grant that was given to Calmer.
Yeah, because that's on,
they're on state.
that's
They're
on,
all on the state highway.
They're on
We have one
52.
coming into Austin, and that's right on the state highway there, and they're responsible for that.
yeah, that's on 52 there and then there. Yeah.
There are safety grants that we can look into. I've not looked into them from this regard to see if these types of signs are possible for that, but I can certainly look into that.
I don't know if it could fall under safe routes to school in any way, shape, or form. That might be worth looking at.
They are,
Yeah.
they are, like you said, Nick, they are
I mean, they slow people down.
Yeah, they slow people down.
So you got 10 of them there that are on rural in non-incorporated places. And then the 1 you can maybe give to Spillville and let them decide if they want to.
I would like to see us continue the program for safety reasons. Because it's not gonna all fall in 1 year. It'll be spread over several years, right?
You just never know. When they go bad. I mean, we had 2 of them go bad here recently.
Like one go there, you're pretty much gonna go.
Yeah.
Most of them.
So you want me to go ahead and purchase the 2 that have gone bad right now, and then look at
See what happens.
more grants?
Yeah.
That's a look at the grant idea first, see what may be available, if at all.
Okay.
And the 2 that are those are fairly heavy traffic or less traffic?
Well, 1 is in Freeport. It's on the north end coming into Freeport. So there's quite a bit of traffic on that one. And then the other one's in Frankville. I imagine there's a fair amount of traffic in Frankville as well. They did talk about whether or not we need to upgrade the solar panel. If there's that much, it's every time that it's flashing, it's taking more juice. And if we need to make a bigger solar panel with a bigger battery, then maybe that would help, elongate them, but.
And you're talking even more money.
Yeah, I'd like Steve's idea. Look at the grants and then see where we go from there.
So don't buy it yet, so we find out about the grants.
Other than that, the ice control BRP is doing Ridgeway now, and then they'll be moving to Kenneville. Blade 151, which is the machine that is in Ames at Brown's Equipment. They think there's only a couple of minor things left to do on that, and we should be grabbing that here hopefully this week is the hope. W14 we should get done this week on the shoulders. And then snow equipment, they're already starting to get all the snow equipment done on them.
Hopefully more days.
Could we get the road crew to plan to move those the Veterans Memorial pieces that were put in the North Hesper pruning quarry back into our care, custody, and control instead of possibly going through a rock crusher and we buy the rock back?
So what are they again?
Right, though?
They used to sit out here, the War Memorial,
The War Memorial.
and they ended up in the quarry up there.
We thought they had gone over to the,
Fire training.
They're up on the Hopples Big Quarry up there by Locust.
and so, but instead I tracked them down and found them up there. There is one private party that's offered to store them for us at no cost, right over here near 9 and 52. That may possibly use them in the private war memorial he's put up there, or there's other options of what we could do with that eventually, but I think we need to protect them and get them back into our custody.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see how big are they? What is it gonna
The
take?
road crew moved them initially.
Okay.
They were out here in the
In the courtyard.
Yeah, when, I think it was Wicks that did the steps, and they tore them out and loaded them on the road crew trucks. And then they got somehow,
Do we need an excavator, a loader? I mean, how heavy are they?
What they are, Nick, is there's four square pieces that are about 6 feet long. There are 3 other pieces of stone that are approximately 3 by 3 by 9 inches. And then maybe a half a dozen small stones. Yeah, that's what we have for weight and size.
They're at close, I suppose they would already have a loader there that could maybe help us.
The times that I've been there, I've not seen, I saw an excavator working when they were expanding and stripping to get more capacity, but I haven't seen that.
That's where he hauled all the fill out up there.
and Jeff might know.
Local shop.
Yeah,
That's
that's why
they
it's
got
maybe enough
dropped
initial
off there.
moving of them. We don't know why they ended up
Yeah,
there.
I think there's some confusion on where they were supposed to go, and that's where they ended up.
Yeah.
County.
But in Bruning's quarry, it doesn't seem like a good resting place for a war memorial.
Where would you like them if we?
Well, I have, Jim Boding has offered to make it, he has a barn right over here that he'd be happy to store them in for us, keep them under.
I think we should just go out in the salvage yard, but
We can put them on the salvage yard by the.
Freeport there.
And Freeport as well, no problem. As long as it's in our custody is the main issue.
Yeah.
I don't foresee any private individual going in
Walking
there
off
and
with
picking those up and walking off with them.
Well, we'll take a look into it and maybe get back to you next week. See what it would entail and if they got any ways of lifting it for us up there, or if we have to get something up there to
You
do
and Lauren
it.
probably.
Okay.
Do that, I would say, for that size.
A question came up in a meeting I had last week about equipment, and the feeling in the county is that we're just buying too many new toys that we shouldn't be, which is at the opposite end of like what we're trying to do is get new equipment in. Can you speak to us as a Howard County engineer who's now working part-time in Winneshiek County on what does that look like, the rotation of equipment and maintaining it and replacing it?
Yeah.
Because there's opinions all over the board on this. I'd just like to hear it from you.
Yes, I don't know enough about Winneshiek's equipment history for that, but for Howard County, I've got 60 pieces of equipment that are self-propelled. And at one time, I think I had run the numbers on that. I think well over half of them were things that were gonna cost over $150,000 to replace. It's not something that you can, I think you have to stay up on it. If you don't, you're gonna end up, digging yourself a hole. Because the issue is you have to replace stuff every single year to get that 60 replaced. You can't, if you hold off on, say one dump truck looks like, yeah, this could hold off for another year or two. You push that off a year or two and you're pushing everything else back a year or two. So back in the early 2000s, in Howard County, we went, I think we had, when I started in 08, the newest motor grader that we had was an 05. The newest dump truck, I think, was an 03 in that range. And it was, I think it was in 2009 that I came to work one day and they had 4 dump trucks with the boxes up because the frames they had sandwiched frames and there was so much rust packed between the frames that they weren't legal to be driven down the road. If the DOT were to pull us over, we'd be in violation of their laws. So we contacted a couple different companies and found out how much it would cost to replace them. But ultimately what we did as a board, had the board do, was they were gracious enough to bond. So we bonded for 4 dump trucks at that time. At that time, you could bond for $100,000 per piece of equipment. At that time, the dump trucks with snow equipment and boxes were about $130,000, $140,000. So I had to come up with the remaining balance on that. But it was certainly better than buying 3 or 4 on my own. Through our TIF with the windmill, we've actually replaced motor graders as well. So that got the ball rolling for us. What we do right now is we replace 1 dump truck every other year and 1 motor grader every other year. So essentially they have to last 20 years before we're getting rid of them. And that means there's an overhaul, on the motor grader transmission and engine typically. So yeah, a lot of people don't understand how old the equipment is. They might see that we're buying a new motor grader every single year or every 2 years, but they don't understand the bad ones that are, throughout the rest of the county. Because a dump truck is cheaper than a motor grader, typically when I'm in my cycle of my dump truck, then I might fit in an excavator or a dozer or something to that regard. In the overall majority of the equipment that we're purchasing, you get a much better bang for your buck if you go new because we get a governmental discount. So there are things that I do purchase used, but very rarely. Most of the motor graders, dump trucks are new when I can. If you're financially strapped to where you cannot, then you have to make those decisions as well. But I think equipment is something that it's an easy thing to cut, but it's going to hurt you more in the long run if you don't keep up on it. But all of us are feeling that pinch for quite a long time. And I wouldn't be where I'm at, with equipment over in Howard if it weren't for the bonding or for the TIF that we've done. So, and technically that's a bond as well. So.
Just make sure bond payment, the TIF.
We don't have that option.
No.
You got to have a WIN number. Howard County has a WIN number.
We have a bond option.
At this point, the one time we borrowed money for dump trucks, it helped immediately, but it didn't help in the long run because they were able to get, I think we got 4 or 5 that time because they were all getting so old. But then making the payment each year took all of their equipment money. So then by the time they didn't buy anything new then for those 5 years. But then by the time we got to the end of it, we were right back where we were before, only we had paid interest in the meantime. So if you can keep up on it each year, it's cheaper than buying a bunch and paying interest. And unless there's some way you can buy a bunch and still buy one every year so you actually get caught up, there isn't a way to do it.
And paying the interest isn't so bad if it's at a low rate.
Yeah,
But
now it's
where if you're paying under what the price increase is every year, then you're fine. But right now, that's.
The bonding that we did was actually, it added a levy, so then I didn't have to worry about paying for it.
Yeah.
The road, so then I was able to continue to
Buy.
purchase.
The next question is if that's spread over the whole county. When you bond, it's spread over the whole county, so it's not really us paying it, it's the county community paying it.
That's the way it was done in Howard County.
We did, the time we did it, we did not bond. We borrowed.
Right.
Borrowed it.
two different things.
Very.
So you had to make payment out of the road fund.
Yes.
And we don't have that ability to have that levy at this juncture, do we?
We do, you could buy, if you bond, you do. Bonding is a whole separate process. I mean, you have to, and I doubt we'll be able to get in under the, I don't know what the current dollar limits are, but prices are higher, and so you'd probably be subject to reverse referendum for that kind of bond. If people don't like that you're bonding for equipment, they could get a petition, and then it would have to go to voters whether to approve it or not.
Do you want to speak to the stainless steel boxes versus non?
So I've used stainless steel, every box that every truck that we've purchased with a new box on it, I've used stainless steel boxes on everything. Typically what we do, and our setup is completely different than you guys. We have 5 or 6 trucks that are solely set up for hard surface, and the remainder of my trucks are set up to plow on gravel roads. You guys are different, where you have all your trucks plowed on the hard surface, and then some of them will peel off and help out on the gravels. So I don't know that this would help that scenario, but what I've done is a lot of times I'll just buy a chassis and then I swap boxes around. And so I put the stainless steel box on the hard surface beat again. Typically what I'm seeing is I'll get 2 lives out of that stainless steel on the hard surface, versus the 1 life on the, if we just got regular steel in there. And, it's downtime. It is very expensive to have to replace for the most part, it's the corners, the tailgate, everything like that is where you're having that problem. But we've seen a lot of good from the stainless steel boxes.
That's all we have too, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
But you-
And I think the salt that we're hauling in them makes a big difference. So we don't have the stainless.
Yep.
So
That's
we-
just another
but
comment that came up.
We're having to replace a lot of the bottoms in our truck beds. Is that because we have plain steel bottoms,
Correct. Yep.
but not stainless steel bottoms?
Correct. And that's not really an option, because you need the strength. And so it's just the walls and the corners, I believe, is the stainless steel.
Do we have any other mitigating options, liners or?
Not really. So
Because you got the salt underneath the liner between that and the steel, and you got a bigger corrosive issue.
We got solvent top come from the bottom bolts. I mean, it's getting.
So I have 3 dump trucks over in Howard County that we call them tubs, and they're entirely made out of plastic. And then we just have to put in liners on the bottom of that plastic. Now they have steel frames around them, but they slide in. Those are no longer being made. I was told that a manufacturer of the steel boxes bought them out and then.
And that's the way the world works.
I have been personally looking for more tubs for my fleet over in Howard County.
What a great
Can't find
start.
it. So,
It's like,
but yeah, they're great for hauling riprap as well. So I want to keep them around and keep them in best condition that I can over in Howard County so that we can, not damage the steel boxes as much with the riprap or larger stone and all that.
Do you have some maintenance requirements for your crews that might be different than ours that are helping to prolong some of your boxes? Wash downs or anything like that that help us deal with salt or?
Yes, I don't know. The guys, on good days that they're supposed to be cleaning their boxes out. We have a pressure washer out of the Cresco shop, but we do not have a pressure washer out of the outline shops. It's just a hose. So, yeah, they're just supposed to clean out their boxes when they have time. I don't think that's anything different than over here, but again, I don't know for sure what you guys.
Maintenance can save on. Periodic maintenance can certainly save on repair bills.
It's tough too. I mean, it's not like you have a catwalk or something that you can get up on top. I'm actually working on an expansion in my Cresco shop, and I'm going to try to build some sort of catwalk, or at least an elevated ladder or something that you can move around, but it's still difficult to get into all those crevices, with the hose. So it's kind of inevitable. It's the game we have to play when we're trying to keep the road clear in the meantime. So.
Was there only one company that did those plastic inserts?
That's my understanding, but again, they quit selling before I even got to Howard County, so we're talking 15 plus years ago now. I don't know how long it's been for sure.
America at their best.
I didn't call it, but they were wanting to know if why we're tearing trees out of the ditches, so I said, didn't know we were even up there, so I just drove up there to see. Well, no, it was farmer cleaning his field out. Had nothing to do when they were taking the trees along the road on their side. You know, in their property. Imagine there might have been one there cleaning the fence line. I said, them trees are, that's his deal. Like, so I think it was only a couple miles from my house. So I'll just run up there quick and get the right answer. I called the guy back, said, well, yeah, his wife had called the county, wanted to know why they're doing it. He wasn't home. Then he come home and he called me, said, well, no, she was all excited. I said, no, whatever they do, that's his business. We can't.
Just jumping back to bonding. The downside of bonding is that rather than the rural fund paying for road issue, it's coming out of the entire county's budget.
Well, no, it'd be levied. It'd be a levy to the public.
Yeah, but then everybody's paying for it rather than just the rural residents. This it would be.
Yes, bond levy, a debt service levy is a county-wide levy.
Well, everybody
So the people who live in.
Well, but
It's a difference. You know, everybody uses the road, so.
yes, but different funds.
Yeah, but everybody uses the road.
Well,
so that-
If that was the case, why would there be any difference in any of it? Why not
Yeah.
make one big pot of money?
Yeah.
Well,
Because people get nervous about.
But everyone-
Ending within the secondary road department, but yet their taxes don't go to fund it because it comes out of the rural fund.
but it's no different than, well, everybody uses the streets in Decorah, but the rural residents aren't necessarily paying for the streets of Decorah either. So I mean, that's why there are different buckets that people pay appropriately for.
Okay. Anybody have anything else for Nick?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Consent agenda?
Wait. Well, we're still on secondary roads, but did the advertising go out for the engineer opening?
Yeah,
And have you received anything?
I received one phone call with some questions.
And that's it?
So far, yeah. But it seemed positive that he was interested in applying, so he was getting the details on how to submit his application and so on, so. Which actually surprised me, because I thought, having had it open twice already, that we had maybe exhausted the local.
Well, maybe.
Cool, but then Yeah, maybe. I think the person was local. I don't know for sure, but I recognized the name.
Didn't get matters.
I didn't get an address.
Consent agenda?
Minutes and claims.
So that roof at the Smith building, is that the insurance claim deal from when the tree last?
Yes, and we do have insurance payment.
Payment, okay.
Yeah.
So that 33 is negated.
Right.
But the windows weren't 14,000.
No, that was a maintenance.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? If none, all those in favor, say aye.
All right,
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Committee reports?
said public health, and Dan Marks gave us a talk on dog bite, and what to do or how to proceed, you know, it was interesting. Different things they could do, and then, he brought up the Spectrum building could be lease or otherwise, so two of us would maybe take a look
Again, that's effective for public health? Is that
So,
what you're saying, Mark?
yeah, we just thought me and Dan could talk to the gentleman and see what the.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Like I said, we've already looked at it once.
They would want to move there just for accessibility or.
Well,
Or
yeah,
space or what's-
it's probably accessibility or just,
I thought they'd already said it wasn't enough square footage. They want to just
well,
revisit.
it's a whole different deal now.
What is house the different now?
Before you were looking at it for DHS. Now he's talking about public health.
It's public health and it's, I mean, it's,
Don't really want to go into.
no, just that she looked at it and she said it could work. And we'll discuss it with one of the board members, so.
If that happened, would we be able to move people from out on the highway and down? Would there be enough space to do that?
Are they looking at moving all of public health or just some?
No, the whole,
Oh, well, then maybe that third or the top floor of the Smith building would then be available for
For DHS.
DHS.
yeah,
Sell it up.
Yes.
Eliminate phone bills.
Yeah.
You want that on an agenda sometime?
well, we gotta talk to the gentleman first.
We'll just talk.
We'll talk to
See
him.
what it is, and if it's something we're gonna bring forward, yes. we'll-
If the Board of Health wants to request it, I think it's got to start with them.
Down, yeah.
Looked at.
So we'll just talk to the gentleman and see what the particulars are. I can talk to her, see what's all. You know,
We have landfill meeting tonight at 5:00.
5 o'clock.
There's still three of you planning to come tomorrow to do the canvas at 9:30.
9:30.
It's about half an hour. Ish.
9:30 tomorrow.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah,
What
here.
time is that meeting on Thursday?
Which one?
Library.
Oh, not 10:15, libraries meeting. 10:15.
You want me to come to that, or do you want to meet with them first, and then after you get kind of an idea, then I can work with them on the actual numbers?
Yeah, do it, and then get back to you.
Yeah, let me know if they're talking.
Yep.
I mean, my idea was that the original agreement had a flat dollar amount that was for each library, and then, so as the valuation has gone up, all of the increase is getting put into the formula. And my idea was, why don't you have like, if it's 18%, give each library 1%, and then the rest goes in the formula. That way, as value goes up, every library's base amount is going up each time, rather than them having to request additional base dollars. That was one idea. Or say,
Please.
yeah, somehow tie because right now you take, there's like whatever it is, some dollar amount per library. And then the rest of the 18 cents gets divided up by a formula. So rather than being at a specific dollar amount, the way to have it adjust itself as valuations, have it be some sort of percent of that 18. So whether it's each library gets 1 cent of the 18 and then the other 13 cents gets divided up, or you want to favor the smaller libraries more, you could do something like half of the money gets divided up equally and then the rest goes into a formula or something like that, so that the amount that each library gets grows as the value goes up. That's the problem, is that was many, many years ago when the valuation was way less. So that flat dollar amount that each library gets isn't growing at the same rate as the total is.
When you look at your head librarians right now, I don't think any of them were in place when the last agreement.
Right. That's true too. Because Lorraine Browski was here the day you talked about it in the meeting, and she was the librarian at the time when we did that last one, not the mayor. I have a stack of miscellaneous budgets for as long as you want to be here. We can work on some of these or not work on any of them today or do a few of them or whatever you want to do. And Steve asked me to put on this discussion for this, the procedure for department head budget submittals too on the agenda.
Well, that's true. One of the things that might be beneficial is like why I asked Jayne this morning the question about, for the public's sake, of what did you accomplish this year and what have you done differently and so forth, that so that it's getting a little more understanding of their departments and how it impacts. And I thought that would be a good general question for every department to answer in their budget presentation, so that the public got a better feel for what they're doing and how it relates.
Or just even a one-page summary
Yeah,
that's attached.
you have something that's a metric that says I accomplished this or didn't accomplish this, and this is how my budget is used. That's something that gives, some of them have the ability to put some metrics in, some don't, but at least they can talk about the services they provide or the benefits that their department is giving. So all of that is something that's beneficial for everybody to hear.
If it's something that could be in a format that's easily accessible to the media, I would just further educate our public about what do these departments do? How do they service you? How does it impact your life on an annual basis? What, you know,
Yeah.
most people in the county don't know what county involved.
We've already had the 3 today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of done. And I hesitate to tell the department heads that they have to provide additional presentation material because some of them are gonna not want to do it or feel they don't have to or won't do it. So,
Well,
I don't know.
if they have to do it, they'll have to do it. But
I mean, if they're another elected
Yeah, I was
official,
gonna say, you can't ask an
Right.
elected official to do
They
something.
run their.
no, but I'm just saying,
yeah. At the same
one
time,
we had today, we're not elected officials.
right.
I mean, one was,
Jayne
the other
was.
one. So,
Jane's elected. Or what we could do is, you know,
I think if you ask questions like you did
Yeah.
today, that's perfectly appropriate.
And they're very forthcoming with any information when asked. So,
Yeah.
it wouldn't hurt if there were local media that would want to do some specific article per department through this whole budget season. That's up to you guys, but it's an idea to fill space in your papers or on your online. About what each department does for this county. It would help everybody.
You wanna go through any of these? I wanna save them all for next week.
I will not personally be here next week. I'll be soon.
Which ones are they? 1 and 2.
These are all ones that I prepared. They're all the miscellaneous,
Is there a copy for each of us? in there?
yes,
I would be comfortable getting.
they were the ones I emailed
First to
out.
us, and then we go through them during the next week.
yeah, what,
I emailed all these out last week.
Right.
These are the ones that I sent out.
I'd rather have my paper printout like this for this to make notes, because it's really hard to read it on my computer.
It is. It's the light print.
That's why I keep,
Generates is really
you want me to start handing these out?
Yeah.
kind of like that would be sit down and we can go through them.
Online.
Trying to see the light print online on my computer screen is not.
I'm-
It's
Rather print here than. Oh,
print a lot of them anyway.
I know, I do too. I don't want to more at home.
Can you print, is there a way to print these darker, Ben? A little more contrast?
I have no idea.
That's your printer's issue. Or it is.
Are you part of the election review tomorrow?
Maybe, you need me back?
Well, I was wondering if after that was over, we, you know,
She's not part of it.
You have your-
You have
I
a
have a
meeting.
meeting at 10. I'm free after that.
I was,
you're 9:30, you're 9:30.
I'm at 9:30.
Yeah, can you meet before 9:30? We can meet you, you know? I think if we give him more, the more time we give him.
It's Sean, I was trying to figure out.
No,
where we
no,
were
it's not
from.
John.
John.
Jones. So
I think I can take those.
we give him 4 times to work with.
I think so, if you want to go quick.
Well,
I could do you
I
four.
have heard.
Like they do.
But she doesn't have that meeting.
Ed wants to get rid of all of his extra budgets at one time, I can tell.
Yeah,
And then my question in the budget season this year is, everybody puts in some flop. I shouldn't say it's flop, it's just the cushion. If we across the board reduced the cushion in each one, would that help in any way?
it would help you 1 year. Right now, if they don't spend it, it goes back in and increases your ending fund balance. So if you have them take it out, this next year will look nice. But then your ending fund balance will be lower at the end of that year because you don't have all that money going back in.
And next year.
So it only really helps you 1 year.
Yeah, you might,
Then it's gone.
Yep,
it might increase the number of.
budget amendments too.
Yes, and HB 718 is a 5-year bill.
Yeah.
Then you'll be way upside, you could be way upside down at the end of the year, and then your next year, yeah.
And Ben's not telling us yet what his guess is on the impact of.
I don't know. I gave you my best guess on that email, 1 to 1.5% value growth. A whole bunch of these are just miscellaneous budgets that there isn't really any changes, so, no. You don't want me to go through them now, that's fine, I went over.
Just sit down and go through them. Go ahead, I got another one.
I started signing it.
Do you want to do it right now or do it, look at them on our own time and then?
That's supposed to be, sorry.
I could almost change that to a D.
Next Monday. Let's review them, and we can go through them quickly tomorrow, next Monday.
Okay.
Are you good with that?
Yeah, and with me, I feel like we have this material ready for tomorrow
I
anyway.
need some stuff, putting to sleep once in a while.
I think we would be done in a half an hour tomorrow, especially if it's, I mean, it's lots of signing. So as long as everyone's keep signing and even while they're talking, that. By the way, everyone's drawers, we had to move these tables for election, so your drawers are empty or mostly empty and your stuff is in the closet.
I think most of them got their stuff back. I did a little bit.
A little bit mixed up.
Yeah. And yours wasn't in for some.
The first one we moved, we dumped, I think it was Mark's drawer, we dumped on the floor, so that's.
Yep.
Paper clip it.
Wipes in there for some reason.
Um,
A band, big band. Yeah.
If we meet with John Lubke tomorrow and you're coming over here at 9:30. Then I could be here from 9:30 till a
10,
little tiny bit before 10. I just need to be downtown by 10.
or we'll try to,
And I'd be
Hurry
replacing
along.
Mark then.
okay. And I'll try to come over a little early, so even if you aren't ready to take your action or open the meeting, you can start doing all the signing.
So we could, actually, Steve and I could come earlier than if we're meeting with John Lubke first and start signing.
I'm gonna put all of these budgets I just passed out on this table and we'll leave them there till next week because that's when they're gonna talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we probably even need an hour with John, an hour, but if we get 8:30, we're here early and we can do.
I'll be here at 8:30 in this room.
We
Or
probably
at John's.
just go by John's,
Okay.
we'll let him know that I can just get to him.
Better write this down. You're welcome.
Second.
A motion and a second for adjournment. All those in favor, say aye.
Who made the motion?
I did.
Mark did, I seconded.
Okay, hold it.
I'll say second.
Where'd you find him?
This right here is a